It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you today, Cranston. I really appreciate you taking your valuable time so that we can get to know you a bit better.
Pleasure's all mine.
So, Cranston, what inspired you to join the collective?
So basically, the fundamental reason behind, overlaid with, of course, the experience in Dubai, the fundamental reason is you can't really do much on your own. You always need a team. And then the quality of what you're able to do, it depends on the quality of the team that you're in or the team you're in. And, I can attach that to your network is equal to your net worth, so to speak. So it depends on people who you surround yourself with. I'm always happy to find myself in a group of very well thought through professionals with a lot of experience in their field. So I could either learn something new or I could be a contribution in a field that they may be lacking in.
So, can you share a little bit about your background and expertise?
That's a lot. That's probably three recordings. So I was raised in an entrepreneurial home. Because of that exposure, I am primarily a serial entrepreneur. Anything and everything that's got to do with entrepreneurship. My first business was when I was 16. Kind of helped me move out of my dad's house at the time, the parental home, because then I could support myself elsewhere. And a lot of those valuable lessons kind of, I could say that I had an early start to making mistakes, and I have learned very, very valuable lessons from those eras and, the losses and the wins as well. Then I kind of moved into Australia about 11 years ago on a work visa, a professional visa. Because I was already I already had that entrepreneurial mindset from back home, originally from Zambia, which is in South Central Africa. Tried the employment out here in Australia, and then eventually that entrepreneurship drive just couldn't help itself. So that drove me to establishing my own agency and a few other businesses as well. Pretty much, the thing with entrepreneurs, we just want to jump onto the next big thing. And I think that's another NLP thing that eventually I kind of got tired of it, because then you always get these emails that say, oh, did you know AI, generative AI could do this, or chatbots and chatbots were a thing, or email marketing, oh, MailChimp is happening, so eventually you kind of sift through the chat and you determine which path is your own. And then along that journey, I came across personal development. I think I was counting. I think I was at $12,000 in just personal development and several thousand hours. The book which said 10,000 hours to be a specialist, and something I went way beyond that in personal development, which then I encountered NLP and the meditations and a lot of information. So, and then I said earlier before we started the interview officially, that somewhere along the line I stumbled upon education. So in my university years, I had joined a volunteer tutoring program, so I could teach my fellow students, and then eventually that became something that I do even up to now as a part-time gig. So currently employed by one of our local universities here, Curtin University, as a tutor under the Center of Aboriginal Studies. That's another story for another day. But yeah, that's my background in a nutshell. I currently as a day job, my main job is I run a boutique business development agency, which is what, ended up taking me to Dubai.
Mm. And in relation to your consulting, you cover off on a lot of different aspects, though, as well as we talked about before. So it's not just education.
No, it's everything. I think the way I like to put it, like from a strictly business perspective, it starts from ideation, so a conversation about a business idea you may have, all the way up to listing or selling, doing second or third round funding. So it's literally everything from start to finish. And then usually the finish would include legacy businesses. So not just you and your face and your time. Once you're gone, we would have developed all the systems, for the next generation of leaders who are going to carry your brand to the next level. We also have an ecosystem. some of the challenging conversations I was having on my panel in marketing, one of them was just like, no way. But it was basically you empower your team so much. And then because I'm in business development, business setting up businesses, and then markets and so on, we have all the infrastructure and the tools to set up businesses. So why not do that in-house, right? Why just sell that all the time? 3 or 4 of our top highest performers ended up having a business out of it. The reverb, probably speaking, is that their clients will need some services that we provide as a mother agency. It's a very, I think it's a somewhat advanced way of looking at it, because a lot of people want to hold on to their best performance because the business performance is kind of dependent on them. But if you know anything about, sort of personal development, you have to let go of something in order for you to own it, if that makes sense. So we kind of put that into the agency, and we developed their businesses, and they've stayed on 100%. They'll literally have a client pending here and now, and then if we give a call and let you know, by the way, they'll find a way in which to make it work. It's also that thing about leadership where you have so much that your cup is full. But then if your cup is full, you can't get any more. So you have to empty your cup in order for you to create room. In a business and agency concept, in that context, it would mean then you have to make them become like successful business people, so that success kind of drains a little bit so we can get more success.
What do you hope to achieve by being part of the collective?
2 things. Number one, whatever it is that I'm able to provide the collective, I'm very happy to do so, including today's time, for example. And that's the mindset, I guess. It is, what is the highest benefit that you can deliver first? And then afterwards, it's always the bonus when something comes back. If there's any benefit that will come back my way, well, that'll be great. But that's not the aim. The aim would be, people like me have so much information, so much knowledge in business. The burden of that responsibility isn't to monetize it. That is the secondary thing. The primary thing would be to find a way in which that knowledge can be shared.
Beautiful. So, are you able to share a recent project or initiative you've been involved in that aligns with the values of the collective?
From community. So I'm also part of, a quick example would be the language learning platform. Problem that we face as diaspora people, whether African or American or English and so on. If you come into the West, like my kids were born here, one was born here, one was born back home. There's that little cultural disparity. So you're Australian, but you're African. But you're Australian, obviously. And then there is the parents, my parents, for example, my mother-in-law is here at the present moment. And then there's a local language that my kids would want to speak, but they can't, right? And then there's this little home culture thing where you do a bit of homeschooling with the language. And that's a really big issue. One of the projects I was involved in was developing a language learning platform. It was really, really interesting. It's still going, but I think of all the projects I've done, that one is the most, because it's so close to home and my kids are literally going one of those classes. And then to see your child being able to be multilingual outside of the education system by a platform that you build that is kind of robust and working, it felt like I was achieving something. So that's one of the projects where, and then obviously that's open, in as much as I'm speaking of the benefit of my kids, that's open to all diaspora people and not just in Australia, across the world. So to have that idea and then to bring it into reality and then to actually see it, let alone to benefit it in my own home, that's something noteworthy.
So how do you see collaboration playing a role in achieving collective goals?
What else is there though? There's nothing else but collaboration. Look at a movie. If you go through, you see the end of the movie is like 10 minutes of credits, right? For an hour, 40 minutes worth of work. It's 10 minutes of what the people who did what, and this is like hundreds of names of people who are each contributing in their own way to the delivery of this movie. Months and months upon months of filming. Then there's additional months of editing. I like to use that analogy because it's such a big one.
I love it. I love it. I've never heard that before. It is perfect.
Yeah, imagine the collaboration that has to go through. So even when the gaffer is holding a light or a microphone, a boom mic, or when the director says, cut it this way or film this shot that way, they've already got the editors in mind, right? So when the costume person is thinking about how are they going to look, how are they going to dress, in what scene, and so they have so many There was so much stuff to think about. The quality of a movie is depending really 100% on the quality of collaboration of all the individual moving parts. Using that analogy, I think with what I said in the beginning, with collaboration, it's like a network of people. Quality of what you sort of get out of the network is the quality of the people who are in that network. And then if you want to get a good quality network, it's the quality of you and what you bring to the network, right? That's basically how I look at collaboration. I think human beings are tribal, so we like to relate to, if I'm African or of African descent, I'll hang out with Africans. Or if I'm a male, I'll hang out with the boys, so to speak. But it's in that mix. If you can go beyond that and completely mix it up, in fact, the higher quality of the mix, the better. So getting someone, having a conversation with that doctor gentleman that I did over lunch in Dubai, we had such a conversation about, the disparities between England and Australia. It lit up certain bulbs in my head that I would never have thought about, right? It's not even going to neuroplasticity and opening neural pathways. The value and the power of collaboration is so important. So, so important that not only can you not do much by yourself, but whatever it is that you're endeavoring to do really is dependent on who you collaborate with during the process of doing that thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that analogy. I think it's perfect. I've never thought of it that way before. So thank you. That was a gift that you've given me already. So, Cranston, how do you balance innovation and practicality in your approach in what you do?
I don't. I just innovate all the time. The balance will find itself. You see that? The universe always finds a balance, right? That's just the way it is. It hates vacuum, so it always brings the balance. I used to think, oh, I better balance this out between what's reasonable, and what's logical. Eventually, you get to the point where I'll give an example. You must give luck a chance. You must account for the fact that you don't know what you don't know. So there are possibilities and probabilities that you can never account for, right? That's the nature of the universe. As we innovate, I would rather focus so much on finding an innovative solution and then worry about the balance later, because what I think is the balance could be the inhibiting factor. In this case, for example, when we started going by the example I gave about the language platform, what we were thinking in the very initial stages was just Zambian languages. My home country's languages, that's it. On its own, it's got 72 sort of accredited languages, right? Accepted languages. But sort of thinking at the time was, look, we've got 72, let's build maybe 20 of the 70. That's a lot on its own. Yes. But then eventually, like, look, we built the model, and then you just replicate that template across other languages. So then why only accommodate one country when you can then just cover the whole continent? Because at the same time, the challenge is you have to niche it, right? So you can't compete with Duolingo or another language learning service. But none of those have got like Africa covered as a continent. If you kind of think logically and you want to create a balance, you would then end up at maybe one or two countries. But if you give luck a chance, then you're like, what, this template can then be replicated across all these other languages. Let's just cover the continent. So in the beginning, then it was no, but covering the continent meant that we'd have to hire several hundred teachers, about 7 or 8 from each country. There's like 52 countries, and then the ripple effect keeps going on. But rather than then say, okay, let's just level this thing through, and then let's just leave it open. I have found, and this is part of my philosophies as well. One of my very closely kept philosophy is, you don't limit, because you don't know what you don't know. Don't limit your potentiality by what you think you know.
Because what you know is already limited.
Yeah, it's limiting
by
itself.
What you don't know.
By what you don't know. Exactly. So if you open it up that way, I mean, I could tell you hundreds of stories, even just how the whole Dubai thing ended up happening. I had a client of mine, I was having coffee with him, and he's opening up this, business of his, which he's trained to do. And we were just, talking about that in passing. And then I said, oh, by the way, next week, what are you doing next week? Or next week, I'll be heading out to Dubai. Oh, tell me about that. In the end, he ended up tagging along, and then we had like the best time. When I came back, of course, because I'm kind of mature in that line to say, you don't know what you don't know. You have to let the universe do its thing. But when I did come back and I'm kind of settling down, and I look back at what just happened over the last 3 weeks, there was no way I could have planned it. No way I could have envisaged it even in my wildest imagination. We do all of these visualization exercises and so on. Another thing with visualization is, again, you're limiting the universe by your ability to imagine something. Of course, the party line says if you can imagine it, then it's possible. Great. But then at the same time, can you imagine, like the source of imagination? No way. So I've come to a place where I am content with the innovation that I'm able to bring to the table, but I'm so experimental with it that I let the universe sort out the balance. It will balance it off anyway, right? So, and again, it's very risky because human beings, by our nature, is we love predictability. And then if you find yourself in a place where it's not predictable, I'll tell you what, like my flight back, I bought a one-way ticket to Dubai because I had other plans. And then I had to be on the other side of the planet. I woke up one morning thinking, oh my God, my tenure here at this hotel is ending. I better get a plane ticket. And that was in the morning. By the afternoon, I was heading to Doha for some reason. I ended up in Qatar for some days. So you have to be in a certain space where you're comfortable being an agent of the universe. I hope that doesn't sound too corny, but within that, of course, you have to be logical about it. You have to get a ticket, right? You just don't rock up to the airport and think, look, I'll find a ticket here somewhere. No way. But at the same time, in answering your question, I don't think it's our role, so to speak, to find the balance. I think it's our role to be as daring with innovation as possible. And then the balance kind of comes through as a natural law. It'll just happen. It's also about a niche, right? Like the template is built, the wheel.
That's right.
But
Yes.
I don't think we want to cover Asia. We want to cover like Papua New Guinea and everywhere on the planet. Not really. So if that's your passion and that's your gifting, hey, by all means, use the template and because at the same time, okay, I'm going to sound a bit weird, but you don't exist. I don't exist here, right? Like I am a figment of your imagination. You are in another geographic location. I'm in another. Somehow we're speaking. Technically, I'm a figment of your imagination. There was no way we're going to be able to connect unless I was somewhat a part of you, and vice versa. And that applies to Dubai and everywhere else, and the people that we meet. Let's not even go to talk about NPCs, non-player characters, and whatnot that we have to kind of live with on the planet. But in saying that, if the spark of inspiration, and another thing I'll say real quick before I continue that point, is that inspiration is like a stream. I like to think of it like a stream that flows just above your head. And if you put your head up, you tap into that stream of inspiration and then you do what you do. And if you don't, that inspiration won't stick around and wait for you. It'll just go to the next person. Because that spark of inspiration has to grow. It's like a seed, right? The tree needs to grow. In the time, so for example, then this goes into like intellectual property, copyrights, and trademarks and so on. The way we do it is like even our agency approaches this thing in graphic design called like the source file, like original source file, when we did your branding and so on. The law protects the creator of the source file as the intellectual property owner. What we do, depending on how we conversate, and we obviously charge for it, it's pretty expensive, but we are happy to give you the source file as well. Because at the end of our relationship, you should be able to still use that source file to continue with your branding journey or your website or your business model and so on. The law then says, no, they can't unless you're involved, or because the intellectual property is yours, if they use that in any other way outside of that intended use, then you can kind of earn from it. Well and good. But that's a very materialistic approach. Ours is we had that spark of inspiration, but it was somewhat temporal. We were the custodian of it. We don't own it. Now, because that spark of inspiration was directed towards you, perhaps you then, take it further to wherever it is that you have to take it. That's another approach which we kind of battled with. We still are. Like I have a podcast and everything. I'm having interesting conversations with my partners because they want to hold on to that. No, this intellectual property belongs to us. Well, it does, but then that's so materialistic. Think about it. We've got what? About 120 years, if you're lucky, to live on this planet. What are you going to do with that intellectual property in that time? Okay, fine. So now you're dead. yeah, okay, let's create generational wealth. And then if your kids or the kids they don't feel that, what are they going to do? Sell it? And then what? In that short space of time that we have, I would rather we share that spark of innovation and that spark of inspiration freely, openly, because then my cup will be half full so that there can be more inspiration, higher quality inspiration from a higher order, obviously from a higher order. And I have found over the years that that's how, you can climb up that ladder, at least in my thinking. And it shows every single project that we do. We do bigger and better projects every single time. And somehow I attribute that, whether I'm just making connections or not, but I do attribute that to the fact that it's free energy. Now, that's another topic, but residual, that's completely another topic. But with energy, the fact that it's free and it has to keep on self-replicating, it has to keep building that energy. What keeps it giving higher quality energy is the fact that it's free. If you put a price tag to it, or a limiting factor, it will still produce the energy, but it will be limited energy, limited by that tag that you attached it to. So using that free energy analogy, like an energy generator that just keeps going, I think if you give something freely, outside of cost, you give it freely, it'll probably benefit the client even more. They just don't know it yet, but it goes on to intentions as well, depending on the intention that you place on something, right? So our agency places that intention on every work we produce. And based on that alone, outside of other factors, based on that alone, even when they receive it or they see this image or they see their site looking this way, or we recommend a business model, or we recommend clients or a certain direction, whatever solution we give them, they start by being baffled by it. Oh my God, this is so amazing. Because our intention or the intention placed upon it is the one where which this is like a baby that we've given. We've given life, we've given form to it, we've given life to it, and that life is not ours. It's your intention, your goal, and then we send it into the world to do that thing that you want to achieve.
And realistically, like there is always an energetic exchange of some description.
Yeah.
So the amount of energy that you save someone in having to go from start to ready deserves an energetic exchange.
For sure.
Absolutely. So whether that's monetary, whether that's an exchange of services, whether it's, you getting something from the universe as a result of giving that, whatever it is, there will always be an energetic exchange.
The universe doesn't like a vacuum. So once we move something from our end, something has to fill that space.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. Again, since we don't know what we don't know, the monetary exchange is amazing. Of course, when you hear that thing on the bank account, you get this notice, oh my God. But at the same time, that doesn't fill it. So the cup isn't filled based on that. That covers, of course, the materialistic side. But then, like I said, not all. It's great to receive. We love it. But the other side of it, the top side, the spiritual side of it, the universe-based side of it is, I mean, here we are, we're going through so many things on the planet. The least that we can do is play our own part in trying to, like, what is the best of activism? It's not necessarily going to Canberra and then holding up a flag and say, free that country.
Yeah.
That works temporarily, but it's what you do on a daily basis. Your activism is what you do every single day. Of course, don't encroach on other people's rights or anything like that. But your own little contribution, as one of the 8 or 9 billion people that we are, your own contribution, your ethos, what wakes you up in the morning, and then how you translate that into every day. I think that's the best form of activism.
Absolutely.
And based on that, I'm an activist. For sure.
It's about the way it's about who you are in the world, how you present, how you show up every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So we got a triple T now. That's all. That's the universe talking to us that we're awesome. So, Chadwick, what message or advice would you like to share with your fellow members of the collective?
Primarily, here I am presenting myself and my agency and all my resources. We do have quite a robust infrastructure. So Um, I'm gonna have to improve my LinkedIn because it was too one side or the other. So I have to kind of like bring everything because a lot of people they say, "Oh, let's check him out online," and then it doesn't. And this is another issue that I had at the conference. In the marketing, one of the panels, I had said, "Well, I don't think we are accounting for people who are doing a lot of things. Social media doesn't account for that. It gives you a bunch of accounts, but it doesn't give you the ability to be able to show the various, dimensions of you on these accounts. And it becomes confusing. So on X or Twitter, you say something else. And then on LinkedIn, you're this other person. On your website, you're this person. But then how do you encapsulate all of who you are on social media? You can't, to be honest. So in as much as that's a challenge, my core message is, hey, look, I'm here in this collective and I'm here to serve. Whatever it is that you need, let's communicate, do let me know. I am more than happy primarily to help, to be of service. Um, and likewise, I'm more than happy to kind of meet different people within their different reality tunnels and see how they're going. I do have a podcast, so it's always something interesting to meet different people and hear their stories. And that's the thing with life. We have such diverse experiences within the same, quote unquote reality that it's amazing the stories that people tell and what they go through and their experiences. So again, primarily I'm here to serve. Anything that you need that I'm able to do, I'm more than happy to deliver. And then secondarily, it would be great to meet people, like-minded people, um, who who are equally going through an interesting journey. It'd be great to be a part of that.